Hey, what's going on, guys? My name is Richard Moglen, and welcome to this week's Market Outlook. So every weekend, for those of you who are new, I go over how the market is looking at this time based on analysis from IBD, wishingwealthblog.com, and of course, technical analysis on the indexes themselves. So I always start off with looking at the Investor Business Daily's latest big picture article, which provides an excellent overview of how stocks and the overall market did during the past week. So essentially what the article is talking about is that even though we had a pretty bad Wednesday with our first distribution day in a while, that the overall health of the market is still pretty good. And they also discuss how, as always, the Chinese-American trade deal is still unclear when that's going to get done. But they also provide about 7 reasons why the market indexes will rise into the new year. And their first reason is perhaps the most important, which is that breakouts are currently working. They talk about Microsoft, Copart, which I traded recently, Target, Fortinet, and VRTX, all very good stocks that rose past their pivot points and continued onwards. And in a market that the health isn't so good, those would probably be failing, as we saw during the summer. So their second reason was that there's also a lot of good setups happening right now. And they talk about Cyber, Adobe, GLOB, Axon, other really good, strong, fundamentally ranked companies. And they also go on to discuss a couple different factors, such as the Investors Intelligence poll, the actual new highs to new low ratio is still exceeding 2-to-1, which is good. And then they talk about kind of general economic factors such as inflation, interest rates, and how these benefit the stock market and investors. So overall, a positive sentiment from Investors Business Daily, despite a big distribution day this past Wednesday. And overall, looking at their market pulse, you can see on Friday we had mild gains. The current outlook is a confirmed uptrend, and distribution days is 3 on the NASDAQ and 4 on the S&P. So now taking a look at wishingwealthblog.com, you can see that the current GMI signal is green, and the current GMI score is a 4 out of 6. However, you can see that the GMI2 is a 3 out of 8, and that's kind of a more sensitive number that reacts more quickly to changing markets. So you'd like to see that increase early into next week, and the overall GMI score to increase as well, back to kind of like the 5-6 range that's been during this really strong last couple of weeks. So overall, from wishingwealthblog.com as well, the market health is still good, and it's a good sign for swing traders and position traders. And before we actually go into TC2000 and actually analyze for ourselves how the indexes are doing, as a quick thank you for taking the time to watch my video, I'm going to link down below the top 200 stocks from my fundamental ranking scale. And these are stocks that are rated very highly from IBD, and they have outstanding recent EPS numbers, sales numbers, return on equity, margins, everything that goes into a true market winner. A lot of stocks that really break out and move very quickly in a short amount of time are actually near the top of this list before they actually start their move. And a quick example is INMD, which I actually have a complete video about, which you should definitely check out if you haven't already. But basically, it was number 1 on my list based on fundamentals before it started its 100% move. So take these 200 stocks that I'll be listing down below in the description, and hopefully you find them useful and can kind of make your watch list from those names. So thanks so much again for watching this video, and let's get on with it. So now we're jumping into TC2000, and we'll be going through, as I usually do, the QQQ, the SPY, the IWM, and FFTY. So first, looking at the QQQ, you can see on this distribution day, this Wednesday, you had huge volume, but overall the index, the QQQ, recovered nicely towards the end of the week and overall did pretty well. And you can see from this chart that we've been on quite a good run. And so hopefully this is just a gentle pullback like we had earlier in the year when we went from the lows in January all the way up until May. So a run like this can last very long, but it's always good to be in touch with how the indexes are performing. And that's why it's always good to do technical analysis on them each and every week. Now taking a look at the SPY, you can see again the distribution day on this past Wednesday, but as with the QQQ, it leveled up and performed overall decently during that week. So now taking a look at the Russell 2000 index, the IWM, you can see that it is still a weaker chart than both the SPY and the QQQ, but you actually see on this last bar a Bollinger Band bounce, which is interesting. And you can see it's also a very tight consolidation these past 3 weeks. So this could be ready to move up decently well into next week. So look out for that. I also want to check out FFTY, which is the IBD 50 ETF, which really describes how growth stocks are doing. If you notice that a lot of your portfolio isn't performing that well, if you look at the FFTY, you'll see the same trend there. So you really want this to be working before you get aggressive with your investments into growth names. And you can see that at the end of last week, it still wasn't performing that well. And even on Friday, when the overall indexes did well, growth stocks still were hit pretty hard. So we'd want this to really bounce off this 10-day moving average and continue above the high of last week. So now that we've talked about the relevant indexes, it's time now to look at my watch list from the last week, which I didn't really have time to refine. I had a lot of stuff due, but overall, you can still see the trend in the growth stock name. So sorting by the weekly change, which is the change from the open of last week until the close, you can see we had a bunch of stocks with decent gains. ATKR, STNA both did very well last week. You can see a really good breakout from ATKR and STNE as well, well over the kind of IBD entry point of the recent highs here, and CPRT as we talked about earlier. But you can also see that we had a fair number of stocks that did pretty poorly, and most notably you can see a lot of profit taking in mode the past couple of days, and this really reinforces that you should try to sell into strength if you own a stock that's really running up quickly. And you can see it broke through the upper Bollinger Band here and then closed almost near the open of that day on huge volume, and you want to take the chance and at least sell part of your position during that time, and otherwise you might actually end up having to sell for a lot lower when it comes back down. But overall, apart from InMode and MTZ, this watchlist fared pretty well over the past week. And I'll be posting my updated watchlist for the upcoming trading week either today or tomorrow, depending on when I get this done and edited. So make sure you're on the lookout for that. And please, if you have any comments or concerns, let me know down below in the comment section. And also make sure if you've made it this far that you leave a like down below on the video. I would really appreciate it. And I hope you guys have a fantastic weekend, and I'll see you guys in future videos.